Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday night live program of Crime Talk. We do this every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and we are streaming tonight not only on YouTube, but Facebook, Roku, Rumble, and Twitch. We're going worldwide. That's what we're doing. Explain the legal system in America to everyone in the world. And just in case, YouTube shuts us down because they don't like what we talk about some days, you got to have a backup plan like all things in life because no one is coming for you. You have to take care of yourself. So thanks for being here. For those of you who do not know me, maybe this is your first time. My name is Scott Reich. Behind the camera, we've got Frank, the hardest working man in show business. We've got our mods out there as well, who are helping us out do what they do. So be nice to them. Although we haven't any need to shut anybody down in a long time. So that is great. Thank you all for being the mods as well. Appreciate that. And so you may say, why would I want to listen to this guy? Well, he's been doing criminal defense for 28 years. So do we every now and then, do we say, hey, I think there was reasonable doubt and the jury disagrees with us? Yes, that happens. But the reality of it is we try to explain what takes place in the legal system. And we do what we can to try and do that on a daily basis and explain the concepts. And frankly, I cannot believe how quickly it has gone on. I think we've been doing this now for going on 5 years now, I think. Yeah. 5 years, I think. And it all started with that little Chris Watts case, that one Chris Watts case. And we put up a video and it just took off and thought, hey, who knows? Maybe there could be something to this YouTube thing. Who knew? If I only got into it when my kids told me I should have got into it about, 15 years ago. Anyway, we are here tonight, and obviously we've been bringing you the trial of Alex Murdaugh there in Old Collinson County in South Carolina. I think it's been very, very interesting trial. We had to get through the initial first responders on scene to kind of lay the groundwork. It was a gruesome scene. Then the prosecution had to lay the evidence for the CSI people to come in and, say what they documented, what they collected. Then they had to tell us what they collected and how it got there to the courtroom so it could be admitted into evidence. Oftentimes not the most exciting thing that takes place in a courtroom, but it's necessary to lay the appropriate foundation to make sure that the jury gets legal and competent evidence. Then the interviews with Alex Murdaugh came, and he was very cooperative. I think one could probably say he was treated with kid gloves because of who he was. He was a Murdaugh. I don't think there was any doubt about that he was getting treated with kid gloves. And then they have the interview some 3 days later where the special agent was talking about it, and we played it, and the prosecution is saying, hey, that is a confession. He said, I did him so wrong, right? Let me just make sure I get the exact language. I did him so bad. And then the defense said, he didn't say I, he said they. And I'll be honest with you, when it's real time, full speed, it sounds like I. Slowed down, it sounds like they. And then it depends if I'm really listening for it. So it makes you really wonder, is it just being suggested somehow? And now the brain is being tricked to say that? I don't know. I think the comments are about 50-50, where people in the video that we put up today, where we played that little snippet of the recording at full speed and then 1/3 speed. And it sounded, when I read the comments, I think it's probably 50-50. People saying it's I. Other people saying it's I and they, or they, they when they hear it slowly. So it's going to be an interesting question. Is it a confession? I mean, frankly, I don't know. The guy sounds like he's mumbling to me. What was the context of it? In all honesty, I think if they being the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, affectionately known as SLED, had they believed that he made a confession that night, he wouldn't have left the interview. He would have been arrested that day, right there on the spot. And then they didn't follow up on it. So you see where the defense theory of the case is coming from, which is one, there were multiple shooters. It wasn't Alex Murdaugh, and that the police decided it was Alex Murdaugh, probably because of all his other indiscretions with attorney-client funds and basically just being a bad human being in general, that obviously he did it. So the question now becomes, did they pick their guy and then make the evidence fit their theory, or did they just say, this is where the evidence leads us and we are just good people trying to find the truth and bring justice and, apple pie and American flag and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. I think you can make a pretty good argument that there's something to work with there. These attorneys are not slouches. They're very experienced. They're very well paid. I mean, we know they got $600,000 budget from the Murdaugh retirement account to pay for his legal fees, and then the rest went to the civil money fund that they're going to have. So I don't know. Here's a good opportunity here. So this here is a super chat. Clumsy Clairvoyance. Scott, I'm not convinced he's guilty. Am I crazy? No, because I was truly going into this thinking I'm going to try to keep an open mind. I think that Alex Murdaugh, like I said, I don't think he's clearly fallen from grace. The guy was, for lack of a better term, given everything because of his last name down there in South Carolina. He completely blew it. And he did some things. He crossed the line when it came to his clients and money and things of that nature. He's been disbarred, for goodness sakes. So that's the financial stuff. I get it. He's in a pickle. The murder stuff, though, it's pretty simple. None of the financial stuff has come in yet to try to show that was the motive. That was the prosecution was going to say. And maybe, obviously they're not done yet. They've got about 2 more weeks to go. I mean, this is only week 2. And the first 3 days of last week were jury selection. But at this point, is there something overwhelming that says Alex Murdaugh did it? There's no eyewitness. There's no gun. We're going to find out real soon. The expert witness for the cell phone extraction and all the data that was done is on the witness stand now. A lot of laying the foundation, trying to get to it, but no big impact like, wow, this is it. He's guilty. Like, this is the defining moment. Haven't seen that just yet. So Clumsy Clairvoyance, no, I don't think you're crazy. Frankly, I think that if the jury had to go back and make a decision right now, the only vote that they could possibly make would be for not guilty. I don't think the government has overcome their burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt just yet. They still have time, but I think that they can do it. So Clumsy Clairvoyance did a super chat. We appreciate that as well. Now, we don't beg for super chats. There's some channels out there that kind of beg for super chats. We're not begging for super chats, but if you want to have your question highlighted, because it shows up as a highlight on a super chat, I am more than happy to do that as well. Tanya says, yes, both. He said I and they. It's very, very deceiving, for sure. I not deceiving, but it sounds different. I mean, that's just me. I mean, and if I was the juror, I'd be like, oh, I don't know. I'd want to listen to that about 25 more times. Do we have that, Frank? We can pull that up and play that. And, we'll see what people think here, but I think it's, we have a poll up. Yeah. Oh, okay. Frank tells me we have a poll. so you can let us know. So yeah, let's go back. Somebody here says, but let's see here. It goes by so fast. Barley Hops. The agent was asking him about the photo, was my understanding. He answered, I did it. It's so bad. Yeah, they were showing the photo of old Paul Murdaugh with the old brain housing group. You know, somebody like put the shotgun there and cracked the old brain housing group like a peanut and squished everything everywhere. That's what he was talking about. He got emotional when they showed him the photo there. So, all right, do we have that stuff? Yep. All right, go ahead and play it, and let's see what people think.
Today is tough. It's just so bad. I did it so bad. It's just so bad. I did it so bad. It's just so bad. I did it so bad.
Well, there it is. I mean, I think the first time definitely sounds like I, then it sounds like they, but it's slowed down. And guess what? I mean, we don't really talk in the real world at 1/3 speed. So maybe that's what the jury has to do. But I think the biggest argument that the prosecution has to overcome is, well, if you show him a photo of his deceased son and he gets emotional and he's like, oh, I did it so bad. Excuse me? What did you just say? I did it so bad? What did you do? Did you do this? Were you responsible for this? And they go from there. But they didn't. He took a mental note of it because they were just doing an investigatory interview. We weren't really, going into what was, real investigation. We were just trying to listen and see what he had to say. And we didn't have anything to disprove what he had to say. But they didn't really say at that point, he didn't give his opinion as to, well, what else did he contradict? You didn't have anything else, really? But it took you some time to do that. All right. Sorry, just looking at a comment there. I didn't know what to make of that. Emily says, hey, not voting, truly not sure what he said, and I will let the jury decide. All the facts are not out yet, counting on the cell phone data placing Alex at the scene at the time of the murders. Emily, 5'3", I don't think you're wrong. And I get it. Like the court of public opinion really doesn't matter that much. What really matters is what the 12, what the people say that are on the jury that ultimately get to deliberate. See, and then it's different. Smiling faces sometimes said, I heard they at first. Barley Hops says, Frank, get the question that puts it in context, please. We're working on it. Hopefully that one will be released. They've been releasing the videos and documents that have been released usually by the following day, as long as they don't have some sort of information. See, I think it's they. Yeah. And the question is, if you think Alex Murdaugh is it I? If you think he's innocent, or you give him, is it they? I mean, you really got it. It's interesting for sure. I don't know. I don't know what the jury's going to think. Now, we also had another court case go on today, right? We had a hearing today, the notice of hearing that was filed in the Lori Vallow matter. No, they have one coming on the February 9th, but I could have swore they had one today as well. I don't know about you all, but January has gone by so fast, and I cannot believe that the month is basically over. And I just really cannot believe it. It's just all been this month has been a blur, literally a total blur. Somebody got Lori Vallow. What are we going to do with Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell? I mean, we need a judge Could you imagine the trial for Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell if we had the judge that we had in the Alex Murdaugh case? I mean, this judge runs a tight ship. He means that when people show up, he admonished the jurors the first day. There were 3 people or 2 people that were late returning from jury duty, and he admonished them right there and said, we can't start without you. When I say 10:30, I mean 10:30, not start making your way back to the room. You be ready to go at 10:30. And you know what? They haven't had a problem since. They get it. They don't mess with this judge. Even the defense attorneys aren't arguing. Sometimes you see defense attorneys will argue with the judge for some reason. Nobody's doing it in this particular case. But we got the Lori Vallow case, right? And they're going to decide. See, I'm just looking here at these comments. It's just so bad. They did it so bad. I did it so bad. It's going to be one of those mysteries. It's going to be like the JFK shooting or something, right? It's going to go on for years. What did he say? I don't know. So we can come back to Alex Murdaugh, but then we got, I mean, seriously, Alex Murdaugh, and we've been taping, we have everything. And if we haven't yet, we'll actually put it up on the podcast as well, so you can listen to it as well, in your spare time in case you missed something. And Chris, I agree, Scott. And also the person chewing the pen looks like he's saying the last few words if you look closely. Yeah, I mean, it's, we have come so far when it comes to police investigations, okay? When I first started practicing law, rarely, if ever, did they do a videotaped interview. It was big, it was clumsy, and you had to go to the DA's office and you got the video on a VHS tape, that somebody had to copy and do whatever. Now, literally everything is on video. And even with everything on video, it's still not perfect. It's still not perfect. Here we are. Did he say this? Did he say that? And then the big question is, does it really matter at the end of the day? But it just shows you, I mean, the world has advanced so much, but really at the end of the day, I mean, think about it. It still comes down to a question of fact. Is the jury going to believe that he was the one that was responsible for the deaths of Maggie and Paul? That's it. That's really the question. It's not a question of did these homicides take place? Clearly they did. The question is can they put Alex Murdaugh behind the weapons that did it, responsible for that? I mean, even if they had a conspiracy where the government was saying that he hired somebody to do it, there's no evidence of that. And they get, 2 people to have that happen. I don't know. Hey, Frank, I think we have our delivery. Oh. Not to interrupt us. Yes. VHS. Yes, it was a thing. I used to have a TV with the VHS player in my office so I could watch VHS tapes. Now it all gets downloaded and here it's amazing. You don't even see it. All it does is create more and more paperwork, like they were talking about today on the phone. If they had to list the history on the phone, 9,000 pages. That's how much information gets stored in this little bad boy. Look at that phone, right? Not that big. It is recording so much information as you speak. I mean, everybody's got their little microphones going, so they're talking about whatever, and we're going to get all kinds of advertisements based upon whatever we talked about, news stories based upon what we talk about. But every time you go, I was thinking about it right before the show. You walk out of the office and you're on your Wi-Fi. You go into the common area where you have access to everybody else's Wi-Fi. Your phone's trying to connect to all those. It's recording all that data, which is, where they see what's going on. Now out there at Mosul, it's out in the middle of nowhere. If there's a connection, it should be pretty clear exactly where it was. But then there's lots of other factors that come in. Some portions of this property, apparently cell phones don't work at all. It's going to be interesting. All right, let's move on then to Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. What are we going to do with these two? Okay. We discussed, I think it was late last week, the motions filed by Mr. Archibald on behalf of Lori Vallow. And he's basically saying, hey, Judge, you're a nice guy and all. We warned you, but we have a problem here. And the problem is speedy trial. And under the Idaho State Constitution, the United States Constitution, you have a speedy trial issue. And under specifically the statute there in Idaho, which codifies the kind of general common law issues of a speedy trial, they say 6 months from the date you say not guilty. Now, remember, Lori Vallow didn't get to say not guilty until she was back from the state hospital being restored to competency. So all that time, that 10 months before, doesn't really count. Okay. So when they say, oh, there's been 1,000 days in custody, and then the previous case in custody, where they charge the, abuse of the children charges to kind of get her in custody and to hold her. Those are all charged. They keep kind of piecemealing the situation here. But since Lori Vallow entered a plea of not guilty, she has not delayed any of the proceedings except for a 40-day period where she was reevaluated for her competency, and therefore her attorneys are saying, Judge, even if you take it that 40 days, she's past the 6 months. Now, the judge and the prosecution argument is, hey, we indicted these people together, Judge. We always wanted to do it together because we don't want to do it twice. We're kind of, it's going to be such an expense. We're moving to the other side of the state. We just don't want to do it twice. It's always about the money, right? What do we say? It's always about the money. It's always about the money. But when it comes to justice, man, you don't worry about the money. You just do what you have to do. And instead of saying, hey, she wants her trial, let's go. Chad Daybell is not ready to go. He needs more time. Okay. He can have as much time as he wants. We'll sever the cases. And the prosecution, and we have talked about this numerous times, I keep saying it. What is their problem with going to try the case? Any prosecutor who brings a first-degree murder charge, specifically one where they're asking for the ultimate penalty, when they say we've indicted, when you say indict, that means they're ready to go charge. They've already charged the case, that they're ready to go try their case beyond a reasonable doubt, just like that, and that they're ready to go. They're ready to go within the statutory speedy trial time period. Not, hey, Judge, we're charging, we're indicting, but, we're still doing some of this testing. It's not really done yet. And, I understand we're 3 months from trial, but Judge, we just found some more stuff that we're testing and, could be exculpatory, which means could reduce the punishment or the culpability of one of the defendants. So, they may want that. And so, it's just, I don't know. It is a problem that the prosecutors have created for themselves, in my humble position. Yes, it's Judge Boyce's problem because why, you may ask? Well, because Judge Boyce is the one that goes along with literally everything the prosecution does. Now, what do we know? Obviously, Judge Boyce, it's his first real big trial. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a big case, first death penalty case. I get all that. But it's not unusual for inexperienced judges to rely upon the prosecution, kind of give the prosecution what they want to do. And they do that for a little while, unless and until the point that they start getting burned by the prosecution. You don't always get the prosecution, but remember, understand, yes, the prosecution is not the friend of the defense. They're not supposed to be the friends of the court. They're supposed to be doing justice. That's their job. And I have had good experienced prosecutors when the judge wanted to do something like, Judge, I get it. I wish you could do that, but you can't. We can't do that under the law. And these guys, these prosecutors, it's all about, judge, we don't want to do it. It's too expensive. It's too expensive. Well, you charged it. Find the money. I don't know what to tell you. You're the one that brought the case. If you don't have the resources to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, then you need to make a decision of what you're going to do. So I don't feel a whole lot of sympathy for anyone as it relates to the speedy trial issue. Now, do I think Judge Boyce is going to say, you know what? I'm wrong. I made a huge mistake. The case against Lori Vallow is dismissed. No. He's not going to do that. Listen, trial court judges do not reverse themselves. Maybe in trial, they'll say, hey, I looked something up and I was wrong. There's new case law out or something along those lines. But they're not going to do it. The judge is not going to do it in this particular case. He has ruled. He's going to double down. He's like, it's like small children. Did you take the cookie from the cookie jar? No. And they got cookie crumbs all around it. And you want to say, you sure you don't want to change your mind? No. They're doubling down on it. The judge is going to double down and say, well, the prosecution asked for it. It's a conspiracy. It hasn't been that long beyond speedy trial. I mean, not once has Lori Vallow asked for a continuance. Not once has she asked for a delay on her part. Frankly, I think it's a great move. I really do. I'm a firm believer in this. I just need and I've had clients that are like, let's go first trial setting, man. Speedy trial, let's do it. Usually turns out well for them. So, she has no choice in this particular matter because the judge said, I'm going to extend it beyond your speedy trial date. But we will see. And then, of course, we got Mr. Pryor on behalf of Chad Daybell, who has never seen a continuance that he doesn't want to ask for. I literally believe at every court appearance and every filing he has made, he has asked for a continuance. He needs more time. He needs more time to do mitigation. And the court's like, well, what have you been doing for almost the last 3 years? 3 years. Your mitigation is you call up the family and say, hey, was he a good guy? If that's all you got, that's all you got. I get it. It's all death penalty stuff. But all that stuff is just fancy, repackaged stuff as it relates to the attorney talking to people and telling his story. That is what it comes down to. And you don't really need 3 years for that. That's just my humble opinion. Hopefully, after 3 years on a death penalty case, if you don't know your client and you don't have anything to put up for mitigation, you've probably been doing something wrong anyway. So I don't think that the judge is going to grant the motion that Mr. Daybell through his attorneys are asking for yet again. He even has gone as far as this time to filing an affidavit with his DNA expert saying, Judge, there's just no possible way. There's just no possible way for we could possibly go to trial in April. We don't know when the results will be in. They'll have to review them, and then we may have to do our own testing and what have you. I mean, here, if I was a judge, I'd say, all right, let's get everybody together. Mr. Prosecution, here's what you got going. I know you guys can move with lightning speed when you want something done, because I've seen it done in the Brian Kohberger case, just north of here in Idaho. And so I'm going to give you a deadline of 48 hours for you to have all your testing done. If you don't get it done, you're still going to finish it. But guess what? You're not going to be able to use the results. The defense can use them, but you're not going to be able to do that. So my guess is if the court imposes deadlines, things will get done. It's just that simple. It happens all the time. The job expands through the amount of time given, and people will get it done. It means that they have to burn the midnight oil. It means that they have to work weekends. They're going to get it done. It's called being a professional. What's the super chat say? Scott, wouldn't a severance solve a lot of issues? Thank you, Clumsy Clairvoyance, for the super chat. It would solve a lot of issues for Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. We both know that they did a notice of alibi, basically saying that, let's see, I think Lori's was basically, I was home while Alex Cox, the bad man, my brother, is the one that did this. Let me see if I can pull it up here really quick. Okay, motion for pre-selection instructions, motion discovery. Let's see if it's this one here. Nope, that's not it. Anyway, that was her notice of alibi. That basically, I didn't do it. I was at home, and you can't prove that I killed the children. Pretty straightforward. And then Chad Daybell filed a similar motion saying that he was, that nobody killed the children at all. Where was that go? Geez, I can't find it. They got scheduling orders. I don't know. It's probably suppressed by now, but that's it. That's the whole case. We've been talking about this case for how long now? And I literally have said, let's go try this case. It's not that complicated. Yes, you found JJ and Tylee's remains on the property of Chad Daybell. Certainly a bad fact for Chad Daybell. Lori Vallow wasn't exactly being mom of the year, going to Hawaii, getting married while her children are missing. The entire state of Idaho is looking for her children, and she is the only one. She is the only one not looking for the children because she knows, obviously, that they're deceased. At least that's what we believe, right? But why didn't she come forward? Well, I guess she has a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. She doesn't have to say something bad happened. But here she is. She gets charged. She goes off to state hospital. We're back. We're ready to go to trial. And they file a notice of alibi saying, hey, I was with, I think her notice was, I'm with Chad Daybell and another woman. And we were basically at this residence when the children died, when the children were with Alex Cox. Okay. That's been the defense the whole long. It wouldn't take me that long. Is you have dead children. I'm heartbroken about it. Alex Cox did it, but then you all started accusing me of everything. So therefore, I remain silent, which is what my right is to do. You cannot prove that I killed anyone or that I directed anyone to harm anyone. It's a simple defense. It really is a simple defense. The only question is whether they're going to believe it or not, the jury. But as you can see, we've said it before, it's a lot different as to what you think happened as to what you can actually prove happened. Kind of just going back to the Alex Cox thing, or Alex Murdaugh. Everybody said, oh, he's guilty. He's did all these other bad things. He must be guilty. Well, that's propensity evidence. You have a right to be charged on these facts and these facts alone. That's it. That's it. And so and when you get to focus on that and you just don't get to get up and say, bad person, you actually have to present evidence and proof, and not only just some proof, but proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest form of proof known under the law. Sometimes that can get difficult. Now, any good prosecutor would say a burden that we definitely ask for and the challenge that they accept, but we don't, here we have a bunch of prosecutors that are like, judge, we only want to do this once because it's really expensive. And did we mention how expensive it is? Oh, and then by the way, Judge, we don't want cameras in the courtroom either, which blows my mind. If it were up to me, I would put cameras in every courtroom in America so people can see what takes place in their courtrooms. Hell, if it were up to me, I would put cameras in every governmental office so we could see what takes place, who's visiting. You will see, and like I said, we mentioned this the other day, I have never seen a case that has basically been litigated in chambers. Never seen it. And I have done homicides. I have done sexual assault cases. I have done sexual assault on children cases. Child abuse resulting in death cases. When, if ever, did we ever litigate a motion in chambers? Not a once. Zero. It doesn't happen. We don't do that, ladies and gentlemen. We're supposed to be better than that. And I hope to God, and not if Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell are in fact found guilty, we want the record to be as solid as possible. But I have never seen a bigger dumpster fire of a case than the Lori Vallow Chad Daybell case. Never once have I seen anything like this litigated in chambers. I get they're making a record, but we have a right under the Constitution for public proceedings. Cases have been reversed when they lock out. They lock the doors and have proceedings. Only in certain circumstances with juveniles can that be done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how gruesome the facts, how embarrassing the information that's going to come out is. It's done in public. We are not some third world dictator, despot, criminal justice system acting on the whim of the dictator. We don't do that. It's supposed to be in public. And we're going to find out all this stuff supposedly at trial. What are we going to do? It in private as well? I don't get it. And I hope that both attorneys for both defendants, and not because I want them to walk, but because it's the law, because it should not be done this way. It just literally flabbergasts me. And then I start thinking, this is ridiculous. Scott, you've done terrible cases. Okay. There have been laws passed where they say, hey, if you're a victim, a child victim, and we don't want you to testify in the same courtroom, you have to testify in another room or remove the defendant to another room, and what you can watch via video. The appellate courts have said, no way. You have a right to confront and cross-examine your accuser, and you have a right to an open public trial. It's that simple. And yet, here we go. Judge Boyce seems to think he can do it. Remember, Lori Hellis said, hey, I'm challenging you, Judge. You're not doing it right. So now he makes a specific finding as to why he shouldn't have to allow this, because we're going to litigate the here's the order closing hearing and sealing the record. On January 31st, today, the court will call this case for a hearing regarding juror questionnaires to be used in selection of the jury. And pursuant to Idaho Code of Administrative Rule 32 G8, the court finds that the hearing and the record, as well as the contents of the juror questionnaire, are exempt from disclosure. Accordingly, the hearing will be closed and sealed until further order. Are you kidding me? Juror questionnaires are not that big of a deal. Normally, the court will put up a big board and says, hi, my name is Scott Reich. I've been a resident of the city and county of Denver for the last 8 years. Prior to that, I lived up north. I work. The wife stays at home. Got a couple of kids. Oh, really? What do your kids do? Oh, what do you do in your spare time? Well, I like to do whatever. I like to read books. I like to go fly fishing. And that's the questionnaire, right? The questionnaire then adds, this case involves the death of children. Will you be able to be fair and impartial? No. Okay. If a juror has an issue and says, hey, I don't want to share with the world everything on my questionnaire, then you go back, you go up to the bench, or you go maybe back in chambers. But you take the prosecutor, the defense attorney, the defendant, who's always there. The defendant gets to be present for everything. And like I said, I just do not understand how Judge Boyce, as a judge, can sleep at night saying, we are just going to close this to the world. I don't get it. I think it's wrong. I do. And, maybe I'm just being, what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe I'm just being a little overly sensitive, but I have never seen it. And I understand sometimes courts can do things a little differently. Maybe you stand up. There's not a podium here. You stand up, you genuflect at some point. But the end of the day, a trial is a trial. Think about all of these other cases that we follow, or any case that you think that you've been following. How many times have motions hearings been held in chambers that nobody gets to see? Let me know. Maybe there's another case out there. I've never seen some precedent for this. Let's take a look at the Sixth Amendment. Pretty straightforward. That pesky Constitution. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy trial. You have statutory and you have the constitutional right to speedy trial. Generally, it's 1 year when somebody's in custody. Unless they've waived speedy trial, you got to get them there. And that clock starts ticking at different times. I had a guy once, he had a federal case pending that they indicted him on. I also represented him on a homicide case. And we filed a motion with the federal courts. At some point, the U.S. attorney started saying, hey, it's been about 7 months since we indicted him, and the warrants, the indictment's been unsealed. We should probably bring this particular individual over to court. So they take him over to court. I show up and say, Judge, I'm here. Oh, by the way, here's my motion to dismiss, violation of speedy trial. And a little more time. So I think we're maybe closer to 8 or 9 months. And there was a case that was very similar where the guy was in state custody. He writes to the federal court and says, hey, federal court, please come get me. I'm literally at the jail across the street from the federal courthouse. And my guy was same deal, maybe 4 blocks away from the jail to the federal courthouse. And I said, Judge, violation of speedy trial. Judge takes it under advisement. And I swear to God, if I had lost the homicide trial, the judge would have granted my motion for speedy trial because they're like, oh, your client's going away for life. But I won that homicide trial, and I show up, Judge, I'm back. My client, set him free. The state did. The state set him free. So therefore, you should as well for violation of speedy trial. And the judge said, well, no, close enough. And then we got to appeal because it was federal court. But the point is the constitutional right is about 12 months. I don't think Lori Vallow has violated the federal constitutional right, but clearly the statutory speedy trial right when you read the plain language of it there in Idaho. Okay. So I digress. Sorry. Sixth Amendment, that pesky Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution. The first 10, the Bill of Rights, the one that the states wouldn't ratify the Constitution unless the first 10 amendments were there. We've talked about this before. Why? Everything in the Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments, it's everything that every dictator, despot around the world had always done to quell a suppression against anybody, to keep the people down. When they don't like being criticized, they turn off the press. When they don't like people defending themselves, when their soldiers come and beat them up for no apparent reason, well, we'll ban firearms. The Third Amendment was a big deal back in the Revolutionary days because the king would say, you're going to feed these people and take care of my horses. And if they get malnourished, I'm going to, you're not going to be happy. Fourth Amendment, the king didn't like you, they'd come rummage around your house. Imagine if a police officer walked up today to you and said, we're coming into your house. For what? Well, we don't know. We don't care. We're going to do it anyway. They used to be able to do that. Get a warrant. That's what you got to say now. Fifth Amendment. Can you imagine? The king used to say, if you don't tell me what you did, we're going to beat it out of you. Can't do that. We got to give you due process, actually give you a trial. Then we get to the Sixth Amendment, the trial one, the important one. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed. Right? Because back in the old days, the king would say, you committed a crime over that new country over there, you call America, we're going to go over and try you in England. Sorry about that. Oh, you don't have any witnesses in your defense. Oh, sorry about that. Right? That's why you're tried in the state where the crime takes place. Not if you charged in Colorado, they take you to Washington, D.C. So shall be tried wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusations, right? To be advised. What am I being charged with? King didn't let you know. I'll let you know when I figure it out. You just wait there in custody. To be confronted with the witnesses against him, right? You actually have to bring witnesses. Can you imagine a radical concept? Well, guess what? It was a radical concept. Our Constitution was a radical concept. Nothing like it had ever been done before. And it still works pretty good, at least when you can keep the government in check. Because the Bill of Rights, it's not powers to the Constitution. Every single one of them limits the Constitution. You think the state would like every trial to be done in chambers? You think they'd like to do every motions hearing in chambers? You betcha they would. But if people don't stand up for it and say, you can't do this, judge, they're going to do it. And that's why I'm going to get on my little defense attorney soapbox. You may not like the little defense attorneys out there trying to defend the law, but when it says the United States of America or the state in which you reside versus you or somebody you know, it means all those resources. And you have one little attorney sitting up there and saying, government, you can't do that. And hopefully you have enough guts of a judge to say, you're right, you can't do that. Or are they just going to go along because they want to get voted in for retention? We continue. So you have a right to be confronted with the witnesses against him. Imagine such a thing. It was radical. To have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor. That means a subpoena. To have subpoenas issued by the court to make sure that your witnesses have to come to court if they would not come voluntarily. And if you are indigent and you cannot afford to pay for them to travel, the court will pay those reasonable expenses. And to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Can you imagine things that we take for granted these days was a radical idea back then. It was unheard of. Oh, maybe if you could afford an attorney, we'd give you one. You could get one, but they're not going to appoint one. Heck, it wasn't even until the early 60s with Gideon v. Wainwright that the court said if you're in custody, you're entitled to representation. Hence the beginning of the public defender's office, or before they had kind of public aids. Maybe there would be an attorney in town the judge would appoint. Well, he's a contract guy. He's not really a criminal guy. But guess what? The judge is going to appoint him to do a case because he can. So, of course, we've expanded that to say you have to have effective assistance of counsel, not just an attorney. Because remember, this was a radical idea. Everything in the Constitution was a radical idea. And it was there for the people to put limitations on the government. Look at all those. They're all limitations on the government. And nobody gets up in the government and says, wow, how can we follow the Constitution on a daily basis? They don't. They get up if they work in the government and they say, how do we get around that? How do we get more power for us? How do we get more power? How can we limit anything the public wants to do They always get around it. It can be a completely unreasonable stop, and some district attorney will get up there and argue and say, well, it was reasonable. Really? You had him by the side of the road for 6 hours while you waited for a drug dog. You really think that's reasonable? I think that's a seizure because you told him he wasn't free to go. When somebody does a felony stop on a routine traffic stop, when they have no information that the person was armed, dangerous in any way whatsoever, the car's not stolen, he just happens to be of a different skin color, and they pull him out at gunpoint, I think that's a seizure. I think that's illegal. Just don't get me started on that, I guess, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm telling you, if you allow it, it's like anything in life. You get more of what you tolerate. And I hope to God that Mr. Archibald, and I hope to God that Mr. Pryor, every time they go back there in chambers, are saying, Judge, this needs to be done in public. And you'd kind of hope that the prosecution would be doing that as well, because they have not only a job to do justice, but they also have a job to make sure that the record is protected. So when the judge, like I said earlier, when I had an experienced prosecutor, a judge wants to do something, I'm like, oh, that'd be great. And the DA is like, Judge, I love your idea. It's just illegal. We can't do that. So, you got to give the defense what they're asking for. But some people don't care. I don't understand it. I've never seen it. And if somebody has some precedent for me where this has been done, maybe it's an Idaho thing. I don't know. But if I was in the state of Idaho right now, I would be embarrassed. I really would. And nothing against the great state of Idaho or the people of Idaho. I just don't like what the judge is doing there, because it is a circumstance where this should all be done in the public. It's all going to come out of trial anyway. Who are we protecting? What's going to be embarrassing? How much more embarrassment, peer pressure could you possibly receive from the fact that you're accused of killing your 2 children and your wife? I mean, think about it. Oh my gosh, we got people to protect. Okay, you redact the names. You say we're going to refer to somebody. But really, this case, I'm telling you, it just drives me crazy. And the more I start talking about it, like when I do in this situation, it gets me even more fired up, because I just don't understand how they are allowing it to continue. I don't. Question. Scott, which lawyer is better at their job? John Pryor, James Archibald, or Mark Means? Do you miss Mark Means? Listen, for those who don't recall, Mark Means was the attorney for Lori Vallow early on in the case. He did primarily mediation and divorce work. It was probably his first felony case ever. He was in over his head. But looking back, as we look back now, and I will always admit when I'm wrong, I've said it before, I kind of miss Mark Means. Yes, I think he had no idea what he was doing, but he was really trying hard. And he was calling out people for doing stuff that shouldn't be done. So for that, I have to give some kudos to Mark Means. I don't think he would be saying, Judge, we can do this all in chambers. That's not a problem. It's if you're a civil case, fine. Like I said, what privacy interest is so great that the people don't have a right to know what the hell is going on in their community? Think about it. You have a right to know. You should be able to walk in, and you can, in every courtroom that I've ever gone into, you can walk into any courthouse tomorrow, walk in there and say, I'd like to see a case. Is there a trial going on today? And sometimes the court staff will say, are you a witness? Are you a family member? And there's just courtroom observers, before the televising of court procedures. If you wanted to go watch in a courtroom, you had to go to the courthouse, and people would do that. And why can they do that? Because everyone has a Sixth Amendment right to a public trial, public hearings. Like I said, I'm telling you, we've done bench conferences, which have been recorded. There's sometimes, like, hey, Judge, we need to continue this arraignment a little bit longer because my client's snitching. And he's going to be such a good witness. We don't want the guy to get hurt, but it's still on the record. And then the judge will say, based upon the record at the bench, I find good cause to continue this hearing. That's the only thing that's done at the bench. Not, Judge, we need to conduct this all in private because, we don't want somebody's name to get out. Well, guess what? You're a witness in a homicide case. Congratulations. You made it. You don't get a free pass. It's just the way it is. I mean, look at some of the people that came out of some of the biggest cases, right? Remember that Cato Kalin guy from the OJ case? For our younger audience, they may not recall that. But that was the case. This guy never wanted to be in the spotlight. Next thing you know, he's there. Kind of a goofball. I don't think he's done anything ever since, but there he is, Just drives me nuts. So which lawyer is better? I think John Pryor is actually, a better trial attorney in the sense of, I think he can probably weave some pretty good silk in front of a jury. I think James Archibald is probably a very technical guy. He's probably a trustworthy guy. But the problem is he just doesn't seem to have much of a passion, at least not anything that I've seen. He's got kind of the personality of a maybe a potato, like a Mr. Potato. Your Honor, we think you should dismiss the case, but have a little passion, instill a little confidence in your client, for God's sakes. If you're excited, the jurors are going to get excited. They're like, I want to hear what this guy has to say. Yeah, let's see what he has to say. He sure got some passion behind him. Let's see what a super chat says. How do I click on that? Not coming up, Frank. Can you click it on it? Well, I can read it here, but it's not going up on the screen. Oh, there it is. Thank you for discussing constitutional law, Scott. Knowledge of these principles is imperative for creating a fair and livable society. Yes, it is. Thank you, Taylor, for that super chat. It's so serious. They just don't teach it anymore. It's scary. And don't get me wrong, it's not like when I was in junior high or high school running, I got to go read the Constitution. This is great. You just wanted to get through class. But I'm telling you, if you do not know the rules of the game in the world, you're not, how do you expect to compete? It's like anything. I don't care. Pick your sport, soccer, football, tennis. What's the key rule? Everybody knows the rules. And they try to work within those rules. And what's the other side always trying to do? Cheat and skirt the rules. Like I said, does anybody in the government get up and say, well, I think we've been a little too hard and restrictive on some of our policies, and we need to expand the freedom. Since when? Show me one point, at least in my lifetime, where they've said, you know what? I think American citizens can handle more freedom and they can do what they want, not being told by the government what they should do. Hell, there's people trying to regulate the size of the Slurpee that you can buy. Like, I get it. You think you're trying to save the world. Don't stop. You're not ever going to do it. People did not come to this country to be dictated to. That's why they left England and everywhere else in the world, to have some third world despot dictator tell them what they can and can't do, and it becomes a complete and corrupt system. That's why people came here. That's why people come here. That's why they will continue to come here. Look at the people that want to come to the United States. Is it because are there more beautiful places in the world? Certainly there are. Is it because, they provide, some of the lowest tax rates? No, we got high tax rates, lower or higher than most countries. They come here for the freedom and the opportunity, where it doesn't matter what your mom or dad's last name was. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you work hard, play within those rules, the system. You should be successful, provide a better life for your children than you had. That's what it comes down to. That's why people have always come here. They are coming here, and they will continue to do so. And hey, if you want to go, see ya. If you ever traveled around the world, beautiful places, lovely people, but it is sure nice to get back to the United States of America. It really is. Just saying. So yes, constitutional law. I'm telling you, it needs to be taught. It needs to be understood. People don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't care. And nobody cares until it affects them. And that's what I've said before. Getting on my little criminal defense soapbox here. It's very simple. Defense attorneys are the ones out there protecting everybody's rights. All those little cases that go all the way up to the state Supreme Court or the United States Supreme Court, it was some little defense attorney, whether he was privately retained, a public defender, or court-appointed counsel. They're making arguments and they're appealing them. And sometimes they take a long time. Right? There's a case, Crawford v. Washington. Can you imagine this case? I don't know. It's probably 18, 20 years old by now. What a radical idea. They said in a criminal trial, you actually have to bring the victim to court to confront and cross-examine somebody. Well, you say, Scott, why would we have to do that? It's so clear. You have a right against confrontation, right to see the evidence, right there in the Sixth Amendment, right? But the courts kept getting away from it. And it usually was in, for example, a domestic violence case. Woman gets, normal case, it was a female that was the victim. She doesn't show up to court, but she makes all these statements the night of and says, hey, he came home drunk. He beat me. Send him to jail. I never want this to happen again. Then the woman realizes, oh my gosh, how am I going to live? I can't afford it. I need him. Oh my gosh, I love him. If I was just a better wife, I wouldn't, wasn't so stupid. Then I wouldn't get beat. The whole cycle of violence that you hear about all the time. So the prosecutors would go forward and say, we're going to prosecute this case, even though if the victim doesn't want to, and we're going to use her statements and she's not here. We're just going to have the cops say, because there was a certain indicia of reliability. And one of the cases that the Supreme Court cited in Crawford v. Washington was from Colorado. And they said, well, if the statement was made immediately after the incident, it had some reliability. And if it was made much later in time where people had time to think and reflect, it must be reliable as well. So the courts used it simply to form it to the facts or the results that they were looking for. And we've talked about this before. You're not a good judge if you get a conviction in every case. You're to follow the law. It sucks that the bad guy goes free. He's a wife beater. We don't like that. But the Constitution says the victim has to come and testify. The defendant has the right to cross-examine, and they have to do it in court under oath. Supreme Court said, what are you doing? You can't do this, states. You're violating people's constitutional rights. But it didn't just happen overnight. Like, it's the first time it ever happened. The states, the courts, and federal have been doing it for years. And defense attorney said, Judge, I was preparing for this trial, and I was just reading this little thing called the Constitution, and I don't think you can do this. And they made the same argument. Denied. Sit down, counsel. Why are you making such ridiculous arguments? I have ruled. And it goes up to the United States Supreme Court. And it was a case out of Washington State. Some little, probably public defender, the one case that went up on appeal. And somebody said, yeah, I think so. And ultimately, it got up there to the United States Supreme Court and changed the way that the prosecution and the government was trying to subvert the Constitution on a daily basis. They do it, ladies and gentlemen. Walk into a courtroom and say, hey, I think this is a legitimate illegal search and seizure. No prosecutor. I think it was completely reasonable. Sure. Like I said, they were by the car for 6 hours and the cop held them at gunpoint. But, they had to wait for the dog. It was reasonable. He offered to let him go to the restroom. What's wrong with that? I swear to God, DAs will tell you straight faced, I don't see the problem with that at all. What's wrong? Thank God, eventually somebody at the appellate court starts to look at that stuff. Jen Lowe, can you give an example of a jury questionnaire for first degree for a child, first degree murder of a child? Frankly, it's not that different. Frankly, jury selection takes longer in what they refer to as an SAOC, where somebody does bad things in the sexual nature to a child. Those questionnaires, and let me understand, a questionnaire where I come from, you hear about, we want a 30-page questionnaire to fill out. Now, where I come from, you get the front, you get the back. That's it. So you put all the, your name, age, serial number, that kind of stuff. What do you do? What does your spouse do? Hey, is there anything about this case you can't be fair and impartial? Is there anything about this case? There may be allegations about harms to children. Is there anything about that do that? And then people write in there, oh my God, I was a victim as a child. I can't do this. And so everybody, they get their questionnaires like, yeah, we'll agree to get rid of juror number 64. Let's get her out of here. No need to talk to. Then there's others where you say, hey, let's go talk in chambers, see if they can be fair and impartial jurors or whatever. I had a case once. It was a really, really bad sex assault case. And we wound up trying it 3 times. And there was one juror on there. I mean, it was supposed to be a 5-day trial. Jury selection took 5 days because we had kind of a weak judge on that particular case. And since that judge is retired since then, I can say that. Weak. Good thing he went into an administrative role because he was not cut out to be a trial judge. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, I can see, yes, attorney regulation. I did say it. Yes, I did. Frankly, it's not that big a deal. I mean, people always like, oh, I didn't know I was going to get a homicide case. Usually what they're more concerned about is that it took longer. It's going to take longer than, the one day that the jury summons said, most trials are done within 1 to 3 days. And this may take 5. Most homicide jury trials take a week at the most. It takes longer to see the jury in some cases. It's really an assault gone bad, right? If the guy hadn't died when he punched him, it'd be down in county court for misdemeanors. It's the penalties that are more severe. That's what gets everybody all freaked out. You got to do this because nobody wants anybody to go to prison longer than they don't have to, right? That's just fundamental fairness. So, I mean, there's not that much difference. It's pretty straightforward. Here's what, generally you can't tell the facts to the jury beforehand. So, hey, this is the general nature of the case. Is there anything about it? If you've been a victim of the same crime, you're not going to get on. Just like if you've been the victim of a recent burglary and it's a burglary case, you're not going to be on that jury. It's that simple. So, same type of thing. The biggest thing is can be fair and impartial. Most people should be begging. Most people should be begging to be on a jury. Ramblin' Rome. Why is this happening? I'm assuming we're talking about Lori Vallow. I don't know. Because the judge is doing it. The judge is doing it. Just saying. All right, let's see. Man, we have so many comments tonight. Thank you, everybody, for joining. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment. Hit that little bell so you get notifications. Now, for those that are also new to this, remember, you can become a Patreon. I think it costs a whopping $5. There's different levels that you can do, but we'll do a show after this where you'll get to actually call in and we can have a conversation with yours truly as I sit here behind the CrimeTalk microphone and I'll answer any question that you have. Let's keep going here. So many questions and we're running out of time. Can you believe it? What is this? Somebody says, Scott, you digress. No questions answered today. Sorry, Mary. Sorry. Sorry. I don't tolerate this. Good for you. Sending love to you and humanity. Let's see here. I can see Judge Boyce's courtroom during the trial. Worse than the guy who tried to represent himself and failed miserably. Oh yeah, the case of Michigan. That's the thing. Take a look at Judge Boyce's rulings, just his demeanor on the stand, on the bench, right? He's just, he just, and this isn't any, but look at the judge in the Vallow trial. Nobody's questioning him. These are the rules. He's ruled. Now move along. He's the one that says, we're going to do this in the open. We're going to do this in the public. I'm not giving anybody any special treatment, so to speak, so that we're going to try the case in chambers. It's all been done in the courtroom where the people can see it, so they know what's going on in their courtroom. So people know, hey, is this a good prosecutor? Is he weak on crime? Is he too hard on crime? Is he being ridiculous? Did the guy get railroaded? Was the judge being fair? All those things need to be done. But look how they've done it. All the news channels, do you see a complete circus chaos in that courtroom? No, because the judge laid down the law. And he said, misbehave, you're out of here. But yet the judge somehow doesn't have the confidence, the boldness to say, I'm going to allow the media because the public has a right to know. This is a case of great public interest. Instead, he cowers behind some administrative rule that says, oh, we're going to do it. Mark my words, ladies and gentlemen. If Judge Boyce thought that he could get away with doing this trial with nobody in the courtroom, just the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, maybe a couple of family members, he would do it in a heartbeat. He has shown every inclination to do that, and that is scary, ladies and gentlemen. Who is he trying to protect, or what is he afraid of? I do not get it. All right. Whew. I don't know about you, but I feel better. All right. We are going to go do our Patreon show. If you'd like to join us, there should be a link down below. You can sign up quickly. It'll be a much smaller crowd, and I promise you'll get your question answered there, because I think we only have maybe 25 people show up at any given time. And like I said, we give you the secret CrimeTalk number, whereby you can call in and speak to yours truly, and I will answer any question. Hopefully, I can answer it. We have a Patreon member who always calls and asks me questions about Florida, and I've been studying up on Florida just so I can try to answer her questions about that. We're gonna try. So, all right. I want to thank everybody for watching. Give me 5 minutes. I'm going to eat some quick dinner. Then we'll go over to our Patreon show, and we shall be right back. All right. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day, not just a great day, and we'll see you next time on Crime Talk.